Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Sales for Breakfast. Today, I have my friend and client and profit strategist, Hannah Gerling, here to talk about how, as we grow, how can we do our best to maintain our profitability and make decisions that still make us money, even in those growth sprints. The reason why I wanted Hannah to come here is because I've often seen, especially in the coaching industry, as you begin to scale and you hit multi 6, 7 figures, what often happens is your profitability goes down. Now, some of this is natural and you can expect this to happen. But what I really wanted to focus on today and why I brought Hannah here was to really talk about some things that we can do as business owners to keep paying ourselves generously, have a healthy, strong business, and be resistant to any economic challenges that come our way because we're prepared, we're profitable, and we know how to really manage our business as a true CEO. So, with that being said, hello, Hannah, and welcome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me here.
Yes, I am so pumped. Can you give my audience a little bit of background on how you came to this and how you're helping some of your clients right now?
Yes, absolutely. So I got a little bit of an all over the place background, as I know lots of business owners do. I started out in the corporate world, working as a chemical engineer, and there I was looking a lot at kind of different process flows and efficiencies. But then transitioned when we moved abroad to become a coach. And within that, I started to sort of coach a lot of business owners. And I discovered there was a lot of focus on sales and marketing. And of course, that's super important. But I also recognized that there was a little bit of a missed opportunity, especially looking when you're scaling your business at the other aspects. So your systems and your people, as well as your products. And of course, in the heart of this lies the profitability. So kind of merging all these aspects led me to start creating the BIMP assessment, where we're kind of looking at all these aspects and then, of course, supporting small business owners. And the reason I think this is so important is because the small businesses are really the engine of the world. And I think if we can get more small businesses more profitable, become bigger businesses, the better it is.
Okay, I love it. Tell us a little bit about what the BIMP plan is, because I just find it so interesting, and I think the way that you're doing it and how you're collecting all of the data is so interesting. So share with us.
Yes, so we're looking at four different value streams in it. So we're looking at the business core, which is really assessing your products and your plans, because you need to have that as kind of a starting point. But then also what's going on with your sales and marketing, and what aspects do you kind of utilize within that? The same with your peoples and systems. And I think this is something that's often overlooked, to really consider who to hire, when to hire, whilst keeping that profit picture in mind. And the same with your systems. So they are ready to grow your business and that you don't necessarily have to do all the work. And then, of course, the fourth value stream is around your numbers, because you need to keep track of this. And that's really kind of important in all of this. So looking at all these aspects, and from that, kind of looking at what is actually going to support me. And that's where all the data comes in. So we're, of course, collecting from all the people that go through this, so we can get a little bit of kind of benchmarking of what works in what industries, and size of business to really, really work for each business.
Yeah, I find the benchmarking really fascinating. Like, I loved college. I can't even talk. I loved college. I was like, felt very scholarly. And like, I went to a research thesis based school. So it was always the benchmarks and the data. And, every time we went to write a paper, like, you had to back it up with the data and all the research and all of the things. And I think as like business owners, and why I love what you're doing so much, especially small business owners, they're like, well, I think I'm doing this right, but I don't really know because I don't have peers or a lot of data to compare to, because most of the data that's available out there is really just for publicly traded companies or very large companies. And so us as small business owners, like, there is some data, but not like what you're creating inside the BIMP plan. And I feel like it's really like a huge advantage to business owners to be like, okay, yes, I am making the right choices, or I am on target I'm not just making guesses here. And that's really, really powerful because there's so many decisions to make as a small business owner. And so I really, really love that you're able to do that. And so I just want to thank you for doing that for all small business owners. I think that when we were working together, so Hannah and I worked together privately for a few months. And so I got to really dig deep into her business. And I remember looking at the chart of if your business has X amount of revenue, and it broke down all of the areas, like how much could you expect to pay yourself. And I found it really fascinating, which actually drew me to want to have you on the show. So can you talk to us a little bit about the correlation between revenue and profit and how that changes as we grow? Because I think this is a really important conversation.
It is. And I think so many business owners, they start with a passion, they know they can deliver value, they get going and sort of then start wondering, but why am I not making enough? And I think it's just that mindset of actually how we look at the numbers in our business. And of course, there are kind of variations depending on industry and for how long you've been in business, but there are some elements that you can actually follow. So for anyone who's not yet earning 6 figures, the recommendation is definitely to be at that 45% profit margin or take-home pay. And I think if we go in with the element of focusing on that number first, we learn to manage our costs around that. And I think it's really important, and we kind of guide on that in the profit plan that we offer, very much to be able to set up your business around the numbers first, and then kind of align both your product pricing, your costs, and your growth elements around that. And I think if you start thinking in that way, it also becomes easier to see how to actually manage your costs as well as your business to see that. Because when you're then growing, of course, like you say, you might want to invest a bit more to sort of do that. But have you actually consider this from more or less today or the beginning, then you can set aside and plan for it so you don't have to lose sight on profit whilst you're growing. And that, of course, comes around managing your products and the profitability there. So to regularly assess that, as well as with your systems. But I think also one really big part of this are your people, because the people in the business is usually the largest cost, and so it should be. But we're not always taking that into account when we're thinking about profits and our margins. So we really need to have assess that early and have a plan for who we're going to hire and how we can manage this to really stick to that kind of right profit number. And of course, if you're not there yet, it's about starting taking the steps to get there.
Yes. Okay. So recapping, 45% profit take home if you're under 6 figures should really be your goal so that you're building the right foundations and you're growing. I think that is a really important number. And I know that we're sometimes challenged with making very large investments to kind of get that jump start. What would you say to somebody who, wanted to make an investment to really accelerate their business, but are still trying to be mindful of their profit?
So I'd say really looking at the likely kind of return on investment. So actually assess that first and not just jump straight in. And of course, if you're very early on in your business, you might have to do a bit of trial and error. And like you said, kind of businesses are a bit similar, but they are also unique. So what might work for one business might not work for another. But as soon as you're a little bit more established, you should really assess the return on investment as part of that kind of planning before you go in to do that, so that you can have an idea of how much you need to invest, but also how quickly are you likely to see the money coming back from that investment.
Okay. Yes, absolutely. I love that. So another big transition. So as you know, I help the solopreneurs be the best salesperson they absolutely can, but I'm also inside a lot of multi 6-figure, 7-figure businesses, and I help train their sales team. I coach their students. And so I love that I get to do both things. And for those people who are maybe like high multi-six figures approaching that $1 million mark, I remember when I was looking through your things, that was a pretty significant shift in terms of what to expect for profitability. So could you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, of course, because it does the kind of that profit margin, or not profit margin, it depends a little bit on how you see it. But we talk about the profit margin in the sense that it also equates as your take-home salary as the founder or owner. And it does reduce when you go up in the kind of the revenue that you're generating. And this is really relating to the fact that you would expect your team to take on more of the day-to-day tasks. So early on that you're being paid for doing much of that, whilst the higher you grow in revenue, you will step back and potentially do more of the strategic pieces, and also kind of letting other people in the business run the day-to-days. And that's what's kind of the big shift around that. And I think that's something that's really important, that we should have a consciousness around, that we early on set up the business in the way that we can actually move away from the day-to-day and more have that sort of strategic role in the business.
Yes, absolutely. I think for me, it's also the types of offers that you create for your business. What does your client journey look like? What does it look like to fulfill what you're selling? Because that has so much to do with A, revenue, B, time, and C, profitability. And all of those things are so important. Like just throwing spaghetti at the wall and, hoping the next offer that you've created on Sunday night is going to sell is not really the most strategic way to ensure your profitability and to grow with ease. And, I think that in particular in the coaching industry, like, most of my clients are right now in that space. I feel like there's so much pressure to make quick decisions, right? Like, oh, you're going to miss it or you're going to miss it. And, I like to think I'm a pretty strategic person. I sit down, I like have my decision-making process and all of the things. And I think it's really important that we talk about that right now, sort of like the outside pressure to make decisions quicker than we want to. And what would you say, what are some of your best practices around decision making for the entrepreneur or the business owner that's really feeling pressured to do things right now?
Yes. Oh, I love that you're bringing this up, because this is not necessarily an easy thing. But first and most important is that you're making the decisions that's going to suit your business in 3 years' time, not what's a quick fix right now. And this comes for most of the kind of, whether your decision is around hiring, whether it is an investment of kind of a new platform or some systems, or whether it is around your offering, like you're mentioning. You should really have a picture a few years ahead to sort of build that plan and make those decisions. And if you are clear on where you kind of see your business going, it'll be far easier to make that decision. Because one thing we do not want to happen is that decision holds us up, because that can so easily become a bottleneck, and we're like procrastinating and wondering what's going to be the right decision. But just to have that future picture, we'll make the decision against that and then go forward and make it happen.
Yes. And I think having a barometer for making decisions, right? Like that's really a big piece of it. And I think thinking ahead, 3 years ahead can be really hard for the average business owner. And so what would you say to somebody who's like, well, I've kind of got an idea in the next 90 days, but I'm feeling a little bit like, ooh, what's next for me? What advice would you give to those people?
I would advise them to not see this as something scary, but just sit down, take half an hour, ideally an hour, and just think about the questions of, what impact do you want your business to have in like 3 to 5 years? What do you want the business to bring you, revenue-wise, time-wise? What kind of business would you like to have? Do you want to have a team or not a team? It doesn't need to have all the detail, but just having a picture of these bigger questions is going to make it far easier to actually make the decisions today. So for the ones that find it a little bit scary, just give it a go, and not going into much detail, but just sort of that overarching picture will be really helpful to have, because it's far easier to look to the future and map your way going backwards than it is trying to find the right path to a profitable business by going in potentially lots of different directions.
Yes, reverse engineering to the goal is just what it's all about. Tell us a little bit about the profit plan that I have up on the screen right now. Can you tell us what people can expect if they go to your website and they download the profit plan?
Yeah, that's a very kind of good way to getting started with putting profit at the center of your business. I definitely would encourage everyone to try it out. And this is really based on that element of taking profit first. So in the profit plan, you will get some guidance as to, depending on where you are revenue-wise, where your numbers should sit approximately. And if you feel it doesn't fit, you can always do a little bit of research around that. But it'll give you the guidance. If this is your revenue, this is where your profit should sit. This is the kind of cost you could expect, but also consider the elements of setting aside money for cash reserves and taxes. So it just breaks down into the core pieces. And when you have that, you then map your own numbers and see where you are, so you can start making the adjustment to come to that profit picture where you want to be.
Yes. Okay. What do you think is, if somebody, let's just say, for instance, somebody made $150,000 last year and they really want to grow and keep growing. They're not quite sure for team members. They're not quite sure about the team members yet. What do you think do you have any perspective on a healthy growth rate where you're growing stably versus like kind of just going wild and growing a little bit too fast, not having the right foundations underneath? Do you have any perspective or feedback on that?
So I think that's a little bit like how long is a piece of string, because every business is very unique in that. But I think we should very much take into consideration the investment that we have available. If we feel we have a really good opportunity to expand quickly, that will of course require more investment, and it definitely will put a lot more pressure on your team. And I think the absolutely crucial element is that if you're growing quickly, to bring the right people on board and let them really understand what your business is about. And if you feel that you haven't quite got the time and the funds to invest, of course, looking at your business according to the value streams I looked at, you can have great opportunities simply by simplifying some processes and upgrading your systems, versus kind of adding another offer. So I think actually analyzing your business is a really good starting point to really see where you have the right opportunities for growth.
Okay, so one thing I want to talk about is the people part, because I think people are so important. And if you are going to grow a multi-6, 7-figure business, you're likely going to need, 7-figure business, you're likely going to need team members. What are some of the biggest mistakes people make when they make their first handful of hires?
So I think when people start hiring, they often hire contractors, which is very natural. It feels like quite daunting making that big hire of making someone employed in your business. And it's absolutely fine to have contractors. But the one thing that's really important is whoever you bring into your business, that you align them to the vision and values of your business, that you take the time to see that they are the right fit for that reason. And that will allow them to be far more productive. They will be able to speak with the right voice representing your business. And also it will make sure that they kind of understand what we're really, really about. Then it's also really important that you do agree on some ways of working. So what is it really that's going to allow us to work effectively together? And I think this is also something that we particularly forget when we hire contractors, but also when we still have a small team, because we're just expecting everyone to understand and know what needs to happen. But yes, clearly articulating this will make quite a big difference. And then I have a third item, and that's also recognizing and looking for the return on investment on your people. So when you start hiring, you should really look where you already have a positive return. Those are the activities to focus on first, to make sure that you can maintain your profitability, and then kind of expand from there. So not losing sight that people are just there to deliver tasks. They're also there to sort of bring revenue and bring profits into your business. So we need to kind of bear that in mind as well when we're growing our team.
Yes, absolutely. And an exercise that I personally have gone through that's helped me decide, contractors that I want to bring on. And I would love to share this with you. I would assume you like this, but I think this is a really, really good thing for anybody listening is I make a list of stuff I hate to do. Like, I hate doing this stuff as a business owner. Like, I make a whole column. I mean, anybody who likes to do every single thing in their business, you're lying. It's not true. Everyone has their strengths, right? So I just dump all the stuff that I don't like on one side. Okay. Then on the right-hand side, I look through all the stuff I don't like to do. And then I think about what is the easiest thing for somebody else to do? Like, what can I systemize, right? And so that I can truly gain back my time. And then I put all of that on the right-hand side. And by doing that, it gives me like a really good visual of, okay, I don't like to do this and I can systemize this. So let's hire someone to do that. That's part of my decision-making process. And I really enjoy it and it feels good. And then I know like I get to do more of what I love, which is to talk. I love talking and I love selling and I love serving, right? So do you have anything to add to that in terms of like making some decisions and like, sorting through the thoughts that you have about your first hire?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great starting point. I would definitely like to add, out of those activities, where do you also see a positive return on investment?
Nice.
So that one needs to go alongside it, and then making sure that we don't hire just for tasks we want to get rid of, but actually needs to happen in our business. And if they're already generating a positive return, it's an easy win to outsource. So that would be my only add-on, but otherwise I think it's a great activity. So
yes. Oh, I love that. That's a great one to add. So now we can have 3 columns, right?
Yes.
My 2 columns and then your third one there.
Yes.
Perfected. That's absolutely amazing. Is there anything else that you would like to share with my audience about being profit first, decision making, or people? I feel like you just have such a wealth of information considering all the high-end consulting that you've done for such big businesses. So anything that you'd like to, leave us with in terms of our discussion today?
Yeah, the only thing is to not forget about the slightly more potentially boring parts of the business, to continuously look at your systems and processes to see if they're right for the growth that you're creating. And of course, that element of what we talked about with people, to make sure that we have that sort of profit picture in mind with that as well. And then the last piece is that element around kind of products as well, to regularly assess the profitability of them, just to make sure. And I think one of the things that's really important in that is actually looking at the products, partly from how profitable they are, but also how much energy do they take to fulfill from our team. So we don't forget about that. It might be hugely profitable, but everyone just is drained from dealing with this. It might not be what should be our core offer. So again, just kind of taking that into consideration as well when we're looking to grow, so that we can grow in a healthy, profitable way, but also one that sort of brings the right energy to ourselves and to our teams.
Yes, that's awesome. I absolutely love that. Now, since this is Sales for Breakfast, we do have to end about talking about sales, right?
Yes.
So based on your experience going into businesses, do you have any final thoughts around sales? I mean, clearly sales is the lifeblood of any organization. Like, the buck stops there. It doesn't matter how great your products, your marketing, your anything, like the buck stops at sales, which is why I'm so passionate about what I do. But I would love to hear from your perspective, being inside some huge businesses, those that are great at sales versus aren't, those who really focus on it and don't. Like, how do you see that impacting not just profitability, but sustainability and, having a really stable company as well?
Yeah, I think this is something where of course you and I really align around this, because it's really about understanding the value that we have to offer. And I think that kind of problem that we're actually solving for people. So if you don't understand that, and if you don't get that right, you're not going to be able to grow and see that element of where is actually my growth going to come from? So, and I completely agree with you. And all the kind of newer business owners that I work with, it starts with that sales element, because unless you have a product that you can sell, you haven't got a business. So really really trying to understand that value, and how can we actually just deliver more value. And I talk a bit about stakeholders, because that's kind of the corporate language I grew up with. But our customers, and really understanding what is that kind of value and more value we're creating for them, instead of kind of counting it as a sales or selling a product, but really understand the value piece. And I think that really filters through from the first day you start the business to a multinational. It's really the core theme in that.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially as we, are approaching not exactly the best economic situation, it's really important that you're personalizing your offers, you're adding more value, you're super clear on the problems that you're solving, and you have omnipresence. And this is really, really important. I was actually reading an article that Gartner just came out with the importance of omnipresence right now. And omnipresence, for anyone who doesn't know what this is, it means that like anytime someone opens their phone or their computer, like your face or products are there, right? You're just kind of like everywhere. It can feel overwhelming from a small business owner, but just to share right now, like this talk show I have that's going out right now is going on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, my group, everywhere. And I hit one button, right? So it's really important to use systems, technology, whatever you need to do to have the omnipresence, because it's just part of like the industry, or I'm sorry, it's just part of the marketing world that we're in now. So make it easy on yourself, get out there and ask for the sale. Right, Hannah?
Absolutely. And I agree with what you said as well. Make it easy for yourself. It doesn't have to be complicated or hard.
No.
Just find that sort of easy way to find your omnipresence. And I love that.
Yay. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Hannah. Please make sure that you drop the link into the comment section and your favorite places that you show up, which I know is like LinkedIn and Facebook, so that everyone can easily click on it. Plus, it was all over the screen the entire time. So go get your profit plan, friends, and enjoy planning for profit. Thanks, Hannah.
Thank you, Michelle.
Bye.
Bye.